Who was the world's greatest soccer player? I'm going to answer that question once and for all right now. I'm just playing. I think the answer to this question is fairly subjective, and I think it really depends on what generation you grew up in. So me, I'm in my mid 30s, and I never saw Maradona play in the World Cup. Of course, I never saw Pele play. I never saw Michael Platini play. Um, Johan Cruyff, I never saw him play, other than some of the highlights I've seen on the YouTubes and whatnot, right? Um, Same thing with like Franz Beckenbauer and some of these guys who were around in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Marco von Basten, I know his career was cut a little bit short because of injury, but it looked like he was on track to be one of the greatest players of all time, right? So I first I first got into watching soccer in the early 2000s. I mean, I've really played since I was a kid. I think I started playing like what was it called, U6 Pee Wee League, and then I played club ball for a long time, and then I played high school. I played a couple years of varsity soccer, and then I played a couple years of college soccer in 2001 and 2003. And so that's when I think when I was playing in senior year in high school and playing college soccer, that's when I first really started getting into watching it. So I started watching the Champions League. I watched the World Cup in Japan in 2002. And so I think it was around 2000, 2001 when I really started watching soccer quite a lot. And so really I got to see Zidane play in his prime. And I also got to see Ronaldo play probably right around his prime or just right after. So I'm not talking about Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm talking about Ronaldo de Souza. Is that correct? I hope I didn't just royally screw that up. Ronaldo de Souza. Ronaldo Souza. Who the hell is that? That's a Brazilian mixed martial artist? That's not right. Ronaldo de Lima. My bad. That's him. Yep, that's him. Ronaldo Luis Nazario de Lima. Yeah. So the Ronaldo of the late 90s, early 2000s was a force to be reckoned with. And it's hard to say how you compare to some of the best forwards nowadays or Cristiano Ronaldo, but I will tell you this, watching Ronaldo de Lima play back in the day in the World Cup in 2002 in Japan, he just completely tore it up. And he almost scored at will. He was such an efficient scorer, and he was so fast. Like he was so fast, and he had such good ball control and dribbling skills at high speed. And he was just lethal in front of goal, like all the time. Also for Real Madrid, for Inter. Um, I think he played for Barcelona a little bit too. But I know he toward the end of his career or the height of his career, just after he's playing for Real Madrid, and he's playing with Zidane, Luis Figo, and some of those guys. And in the World Cup in 2002, he's playing with Rivaldo. And I think Ronaldinho was playing with him at that time as well. But he was an incredible player. And then Zidane at his prime, it's like you can't even argue against that. So he really climbed up into the spotlight, I think, in the 98 World Cup when he scored the two goals in the final. And he had just a really good World Cup overall. And he helped France hoist their first title in history. So in the early 2000s, I was watching a lot of Champions League games, so I got to see Zidane play. And I haven't seen any player since that could do what he did. Just or even get close, really. I mean, so like Messi nowadays. Messi is incredibly fast. He's incredibly quick. He's a great scorer. Like there's no doubt about it. But I don't think he can quite. I don't think he can quite take over games like Zidane did. And granted, they play in two different positions. Messi plays a little more forward. Sometimes he plays on the wing. And Zidane was really like a true central midfielder. And Zidane, I don't think played that. I don't think he's a really defender. He didn't play that much. He was really an attacker and a distributor, and he didn't defend much. But just his passing and his ability to avoid defenders and his ability to create space where there was no space, I haven't seen any player do that. And so, yeah, it's easy to argue that, well, Cristiano Ronaldo's probably, he's a better scorer. He's faster. Messi's a better scorer. He's quicker. and those guys, can rack up 2 goals in a night, 3 goals in a night, and that's great. But I think Messi in particular, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this probably if people see this video. I think Messi has a lot of help around him on the Barcelona team. And that's also one of the reasons why I think Cristiano Ronaldo is overall a better player, because he completely tore up the Premier League when he first played for Manchester United. He completely tore up La Liga when he played for Real Madrid, and he also helped Portugal hoist their first Euro Cup a couple years back, right? And I think the Portugal team then was a little bit above mediocre. I don't think they were just an incredible team, but he helped them win their first Euro title. But you can counter argue and say, to be fair, Messi got Argentina to the final 4 years ago, where they played against Germany, and I'd even make the argument then I think they would have won that if they would have brought in Carlos Tevez. I think the coach made a huge mistake not bringing Carlos Tevez, because late in the tournament, when people are getting tired and their legs are really heavy, you bring in a guy like Carlos Tevez, that guy is just going to destroy people. And they didn't bring him because the coach didn't like him or got in a fight with him or something. It was absolutely stupid. I mean, yeah, there's no arguments against Messi and Ronaldo being incredible players and being incredible scorers and deserving their Ballon d'Or and their Player of the Year awards and all that. I just haven't seen any player completely take over games or control games like Zidane did. So I think his dribbling and his ability to create space and move around people was unparalleled in anything I've ever seen. He was both footed basically. He can score from 30 yards out with either foot, with the volley or just with the shot. He was strong. He was strong on the ball because I think he was like a little over 6 foot, and he just had like two Gumby legs. He could do things with his legs like people can do with their hands. Like, it's just, you don't see it. It was unnatural. He was unnaturally good with both feet, and so I just haven't seen that yet. And not only that, on top of that, Zidane has won every single trophy with multiple teams, and Messi and Ronaldo can't even say that, right? And a lot of the greats, and I think really any of the greats from the past can't say that either. Zidane is really the singular player that has pretty much won every single major trophy with more than one team. So he won trophies with Juventus, he won trophies with Real Madrid, he won trophies with France, both the Euro and the World Cup, and he was a Player of the Year in the Ballon d'Or multiple times. So for me, Zidane's the best player that I've ever seen play. But yeah, this whole thing is a bit subjective because, I wasn't around when some of these other greats from the past were playing, so it's difficult for me to say, because you can watch highlights of different players on YouTube and these grainy old footage from the 70s and 80s, and you'd be like, oh, that looks pretty good, and okay, they're doing some cool stuff, and they were great players, but until you actually watch live games and you get the live feed, or even better, you see the game in person, you see it live in person, it's difficult to get a true sense of how impactful or how good a player was, unless you see more live or more real footage. So I think I'll leave it at that. If anybody has any comments or other players that they think might be ranked really high up, or maybe in the top 5, top 10 of all time that I didn't mention, feel free to comment. I think maybe I'll end then with, before I stop this video, the best players that I think are still around right now. Messi and Ronaldo, obviously. Salah had a really good season last year, so I think he's got to be up there. I think Ibrahimovic, maybe a couple years ago, was up there for sure. And then oh shit, Pogba's right up there. Mbappe, sorry if I mispronounced the name. They got to be up there too. And then Antoine Griezmann, I think he's a really good player. He's just so smart and quick with the ball. And there's definitely a few others I'm not mentioning right now or not thinking of. I will say, I think my favorite player of all time, I think Zidane's got to be right up there, but My favorite player of all time is probably Pavel Nedved, the Czech cannon. I just love watching that guy play back in the day for Juventus. That guy, he was very fast, but he was strong for his size, and he wasn't. I don't know if he was the quickest guy always, but he just was so smart with his one touches and his movements into space. So he always seemed to find space where there wasn't, and he would just one touch pass it or one touch rip a shot from like 30 yards out and just blast it upper seven. So that guy was like both footed too. So he could hit left foot, right foot, volleys, straight shots, and he was just a wrecking ball. They called him the Czech Cannon for a reason. And he had like this long flowing blonde hair, and he would just go out there and just be running, and his hair is just flopping back and forth, and he was a unique talent. He had a unique skill set for professional soccer players, and I just love watching him play. And so I would say he's probably my favorite player of all time. Anyway, thanks for listening. Take care.